Let's break down my 3 to 4 bead method when it comes to applying on a longer nail. So for this application, we're going to be using Makartt Pro's Cover Acrylic Powder in Lavender Luxe. She is a super shimmery, super pretty, like purple lavenderish color. And I'm going to be using her with a 100% Klinsky brush in the size number 8 from Makartt Pro, which is always my go-to size for beginner nail techs. Now, before doing anything, make sure that you guys are kind of just swirling up and mixing the powders before you go in to pick up your bead. Sometimes the glitter and the powders, because they weigh differently, they can kind of like shift around in there. Now, I like to use the Makartt Pro EMA Liquid Monomer in the low odor formula, which is that light pink band you see on it. I like to use it at home, especially since in my home studio, I don't really have the best ventilation, and this kind of helps me to keep all the odor kind of contained in just my filming area. With the first bead, it's going to be a big bead, so I'm going to kiss the side of my dappen dish just really lightly at the tip. This is going to maintain most of that liquid inside my brush, as you can see, and we're going to go into pick up our first bead here. Look at that, so pretty. Make sure you always turn your bead around just to kind of look at it and let it polymerize and get watery before you start placing it down, or else you're going to be working with a super runny bead. Now, as you place her down, I do the same thing every single time. I hover and then I pull and then I tap in from the two sides before I flatten the middle. It's super important that when you first place down your bead, you should try to stay away from the swiping motion and you primarily work on this tapping motion. As you guys can see, I'm tapping to kind of bring that bead down towards the tip, and then I always like to slide off on the side to keep it nice and crisp. Well, that was so crisp that it literally made me cough. I'm so sorry. Now, I can start swiping once the acrylic stops moving. And the whole reason I'm doing this is just to take off any excess products. And then I'm going to push in the tip and then swipe it out. It's super easy to cut the acrylic once the powder has set. But if you're working with a super runny bead that's not ready for you to cut, it's just going to get inside the brush and it's just a whole mess. Don't do that. Now, with my second bead, let's go ahead and kiss in this middle of the brush. This is going to retain half the amount of monomer, so for a medium-sized bead. Then, same as always, go into your powder. I'm going to do a tap and one bounce, and this is going to give us that really pretty, nice, medium-sized bead that has the most perfect liquid-to-powder ratio. If your beads are too wet, go deeper, okay? As you guys can see, I like to go a little deep. Now, going in with our apex bead, this bead is going to be the highest point of the nail. So you want to make sure that as you're working with it, you don't flatten her out. So notice how I'm kind of spending more time on the bottom half of the bead rather than placing my brush all the way towards the top of the bead. I'm really blending her in just at the bottom so that it'll create a nice high apex arch without damaging the apex. Now let's go in with our last bead here, or actually no, I think I'm going to do 2 beads for this one. This is going to be my closer to my cuticle bead, so this is going to be the latter half of the apex bead. I'm going to use a slightly smaller bead, so with that, let's pick up a small bead and flip her around, same as always, let her polymerize. With the cuticle bead, just because there's a little less monomer and then a little more powder, I like to just kind of go straight in, place her down, and not wait for too long, because if I wait too long, the bead might dry up on me. So as you can see, placing her down, and then I'm going to go ahead and swipe to blend. Same as the last bead, just more of the bottom part of that bead. As you can see, it just blends super easily. For this nail, because it's such a long nail, I wanted to break it down into 4 beads because I already know myself. Sometimes I can like misplace the apex, and then on every single nail it's a little different. So I ended up doing this in 4 beads. But look at how smooth that application just looks. Now, moving into my last bead, this is going to be my cuticle bead. Notice how when I place it down, I kind of do like a pushy motion into the top half of that acrylic, and that will get it inside as flush to the cuticle as possible before I start blending her downwards back into the apex bead and then the rest of the nail. And then that's how you're going to get the most perfect acrylic application on a longer nail. Just remember, use as many beads as you need to as a beginner. Sometimes I use 3, sometimes I use 4. It just depends on how much area I'm trying to cover and how confident I'm feeling in my application that day.